What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Punk Rock Radar. This is our first tier list in like 3 or 4 weeks, and we've picked a hell of a discography here. As you can see, there's just two of us here because my friend Dylan here is one of the only people who's willing to tackle this beast of a discography. We're doing 16 Screeching Weasel albums. We had to cut it down. I think we had 18 or 19. But Dylan, how are you feeling about hitting these 258 Screeching Weasel songs across 16 albums?
We could have done the Riverdales and the Methadones and Noise by Numbers and Dan Vapid and the Cheats. We could have done all those too, but we'll save those for another episode. But I'm feeling good.
I would love to hit those, especially the Dan Vapid stuff. I think I like the Dan Vapid stuff maybe more.
It's better than the Methadones.
Yeah, and most of this, if we're being honest, I don't want to get negative right off the bat, but I'll just say that
sacrilegious, my friend.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna get a lot of heat, especially in the beginning, because I was looking because a lot of these old Screeching Weasel songs albums I haven't listened to in like 20 years, so it's been a while, and I looked back like on Reddit and what people looked at for their favorite Screeching Weasel albums, and there's some of their tier lists here and there. Mine was like flipped almost. So just if you are a huge Screeching Weasel fan watching this and you are dead set in your beliefs about what's the best, and if it's one of the first 3 albums, I'm sorry, but I'll just tell you right now, you're not going to like this. You can leave a thumbs down, and we'll see you next time. But Dylan, let's just get into this because I'm really, really curious about what you're going to do, especially with this first album, the self-titled record from 1987 that has 27 songs in 34 minutes. Take it away, man.
I'm putting this one in the dirt. D tier. So this is Screeching Weasel, and they still thought they were a hardcore band. And I guess Ben's idea of hardcore music is just screaming the same 2-word phrase over and over again for choruses. So, I will say, I like Murder in the Brady House. That's like kind of their first foyer into pop punk, kinda. But yeah, that Screeching Weasel was not a good hardcore band, so I'm putting this one in the D tier easily. This was probably the first album I ranked.
Yeah,
What do you think about it?
This is an easy one for me too, and I'm right there with you. I don't think there's any question that this is a D tier. Like, I don't know if you're going to disagree with this, but this kind of reminds me of the first Guttermouth album, the one on Doctor Strange. Just a little bit, the way like the vocal delivery is on some of them and the style of it. And it's not so much Ramones core yet. Like I could hear like a little bit of influence here and there, but overall, just not an album that I would ever come back to listen to, especially when there's 16 others here. Like the only reason I could think of that people would listen to this is if they're ranking these albums, which we are. So we have an excuse. If you're out there and you like this album, seriously, what's your excuse? But all right, man, up next, this is one that I think a lot of people really like. Boogadaboogadaboogada. This came out in 1988, I believe. So like 1 year after. So they churn out another 26 songs. So we're up to like 60 songs in 2 years. What are you doing with this one?
Very prolific songwriter Benjamin is. Yeah, so it's still there's still a lot of the hardcore stuff going on, but they definitely, this is when they really start to venture more into pop punk territory. And Screeching Weasel, obviously, they're known for mainly the Weasel lead guitar parts, or some people call it nursery rhyme guitar leads. So this album has a lot of songs where Jughead's playing those nursery style guitar leads. Obviously, Hey Suburbia is probably like one of the biggest Screeching Weasel songs. Me personally, it's just too long, man. Like there is so much filler on here, and the stuff that's hardcore, I'm not a fan of, like Holy Hardcore and stuff like that. I do like This Ain't Hawaii. That's probably their best hardcore style song. But with all that said, slight improvement over the self-title album. I got this one in the C tier.
Okay. All right, cool. I was worried that you were going to have this like up in A or B because, dude, some people really like this one, but I'm kind of with you.
It's a sacred cow of pop punk music, I would say.
It really is, but honestly, man, like I think this is good. I think it's better than the last one. I listened to this one from time to time, and according to Thank You Very Little, the compilation album, this is their best-selling album, or it was when that came out, which is pretty surprising to me. But I'm going D with this one too. I'm just going with my gut, man. Completely subjective. I don't really care for this one as much as I do the later stuff. So just keeping it true to myself. I'm gonna go D with sorry, I just stepped on my cat. I'm gonna go D with Boogadaboogadaboogada. And the next one, man, this is the one I'm actually most worried about, because if you look, like, I think on when Punk Rock Vinyl did the poll, I think this may have won, and this is like a lot of people's 1A or 1B Screeching Weasel album. So I'm nervous to tell you my ranking. So I'm hoping that you maybe will soften the blow for people out there. What do you think of My Brain Hurts?
I made the politically correct choice, but it's also where my heart's at. I mean, this is easily in the S tier for me. This is as far as like Lookout Records releases go. I don't know if you guys ever did like a Lookout Records like draft or whatever, but this would have been easily my first round pick for a Lookout draft. They fully commit to the pop punk side of their sound on this album, and they basically spawned the Ramones core genre, which is ironic. It's called Ramones core and not Screeching Weasel core.
Yeah.
But this album shaped 90s pop punk and Lookout Records, like their trajectory, like big time. There's not any bad songs on this album. I will say, I always talk about production. Production's pretty rough, but I mean, that's to be expected from an early 90s punk album, so it's not too surprising. The guitar tone's pretty rough, but when it comes down to the quality of the songs, like, this is one of the, like, you know, like, groundbreaking pop punk albums all time, so easily an S tier album for me.
All right.
Now, what do you think of it?
All right, man. So I didn't want to do this. Like, I had fully planned on like putting it somewhere between like A and B or whatever. But like going back, we planned on doing this list like maybe 2 months ago. Like, it's been a long time for me to sit and stew over this. And actually, too, I want to point this out too, that if you guys haven't read Larry Livermore's book about Lookout Records, there's a lot of good stuff about this album in particular. One little tidbit I didn't know, Dylan, you might know, you're probably a bigger Screeching Weasel fan than me, is that when Ben approached Larry to put out this album, the band was called the Gore Gore Girls, not Screeching Weasel. Larry said, "Hey, I'm not signing you unless you change your name back to Screeching Weasel." So this is either your favorite Screeching Weasel album or your favorite Gore Gore Girls album, depending on when you heard it. But it's not either of those for me. So I'm putting this one in C, man. I think that some of the later stuff is a lot better than this. Like, I certainly appreciate what this did for the pop punk scene and Lookout Records. I would love to do a draft someday. But this would not be my first round pick, second round pick, or third round pick. Spoiler alert. It's going in C. It could easily be a B on any given day, but staying true to my list today, here on November 9th, 2022, it is a C tier Screeching Weasel record for me. And I apologize in advance to everybody who is offended by that. And And Dylan, I'll take us right into this next one too, because I think I'm going to continue this trajectory of offending big Screeching Weasel fans, because I think this one is a pretty clear step down from My Brain Hurts. I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't see as much love for this one as My Brain Hurts, but people definitely like this album. But I think it has a lot of what you were saying with those guitar solos, like remedial, like high pitched guitar solos. I really do not like that sound at all. I listen to this one probably less than Boogadaboogada, but I think it's maybe a little better than that one. So I'm also gonna put this one in C. So back to back, My Brain Hurts, Wiggle in the C tier. What are you doing with Wiggle?
Like a parasite, I wanna lick you hand to toe.
So, not to derail things, but I believe, according to at least my Discog screen I got open here, Anthem is the album after My Brain Hurts. I could be wrong about that, but I'll go with the flow. So Wiggle. Yeah, I kind of, as far as the guitar leads, they kind of do feel like they don't work as well on this album, because I don't know what the deal was with the guitar tone, but it's very like shrill and like piercing on this album, more so than any of the other ones around this period. Um, I have this one in the A tier, and I feel like that's being a little generous. Mainly because the first half of the album is really good. I would say like the first 5 or 6 songs are excellent and would have made a really good EP. The back half of the album, aside from Second Floor East and It's All in My Head, is pretty weak. I really don't like Genie. That song is it's like one of those songs that like you'd be embarrassed to listen to with someone
Yeah.
else in the car. And Joni and Johnny, I don't really like that song either. There's also some songs on here that are from like a 7-inch they did, I think, and they kind of stick out because they sound a lot different as far as like the sonic quality of the songs. But yeah, I have this in my A tier, just barely, on the strength of the first half of the album and then those other 2 songs.
Yeah, I'm surprised with that one. I didn't think you'd go A. You might be right with Anthem. I'm not sure. Like they both say 93, so
Yeah, they do.
I just
They
kind of
do.
like winged it. Like I don't know. Like you might be right. I should have done. I probably should have done a little more research. But
I was negative 2 years old though, so yeah, I don't know, dude.
I don't know. So I'm sure someone in the comments will let us know if we're wrong. I'm probably wrong, dude. Because honestly,
We'll
I
see.
just did this
Tie
right
goes to
now.
the
The
runner.
order, so it is what it is, guys. If Wiggles first or Anthem's first, let us know. Because I was 8, you were -2, so neither of us should know better, or who knows. But anyway, now we are on to Anthem for a New Tomorrow, another beloved album. And this is the first one, Dylan, that I kind of agree. Like I can really hear modern Screeching Weasel in this one. I also really hear, I don't know if you're going to admit to this. I don't know if Ben would admit to this, but I hear a lot of Kerplunk sound influence on this, especially in the guitar. Like if you listen to the song Inside Out, the guitar playing, like the strumming pattern on that is very reminiscent of something you would hear on Kerplunk, which would probably be my number 1 pick in a Lookout draft, by the way. But I really like this album. This is my first A tier Screeching Weasel album. The first one I really enjoy that I listen to regularly. So Anthem for a New Tomorrow going in the A tier for me. What about you, man? Where are you putting this one?
Yeah, man, this is my favorite Screeching Weasel album. It just edges out My Brain Hurts. I don't know what drew me to it. I guess it's a lot more varied in its sound. It's not like, My Brain Hurts is all straightforward, galloping, like super fast songs, and this mixes it up a lot. Yeah, even stuff like I, Robot, like that's a kind of weird song, but that's the kind of like experimental kind of stuff they started to do. The bass intro on was it? I think it's the last song, isn't it?
A New Tomorrow? Possibly, I'm not
No,
sure.
it's not that. There's one song. This is so bad that it's my favorite album. I can't remember the name. I think it's the title track, maybe. Um, no, it's not, because that's the last song. But anyway, they do a lot more experimental stuff on here. And there's just something. There's something about this album, man. Like the cover art's so fucking badass. Ben, I think Ben, this is the only album he played guitar on. The guitars sound really good. I never made the Kerplunk correlation. I'll have to go back and listen to that album and see if I know what you mean. But yeah. Oh, Every Night is the song with the bass intro.
Okay.
But just a really awesome album. I love this album, man. Easily in the S tier for me.
Nice. All right. So we're getting kind of in sync now. It looks like I think we're gonna meet in that middle. We both have that blank B tier. So I don't know about you, so I'll let you take it into it. But I have a couple questions, man, about this next one, because I'm definitely a big Green Day fan. So I like that Mike Dirnt is playing bass on this album.
Yeah.
But I had a question for you. I don't know, because on Kerplunk there's Who Wrote Holden Caulfield. On this one, in my opinion, the best song on here is I Wrote Holden Caulfield. Do you have any idea what the connection with those songs is, or is it just like a tongue-in-cheek reference?
I don't know the lyrics to I Wrote Holden Caulfield. So I know it is a direct response to the Green Day song. I think Ben's made that clear. But anyway, as far as the quality of this album, I have this album. This is going to be my first B tier album. And you mentioned Mike Dirnt. That's pretty cool. And another thing you probably, if not know, you may like hear it, is that I guess they tuned down all the guitars and bass on this album to go for like a heavier sound. Because I guess that's what Green Day's always done. So I think I remember hearing something about it was Mike's idea to tune down half a step, and it definitely is one of their like heavier sounding albums, just as far as like how it's just everything's played at a lower in a lower key. But as far as the quality of the songs, I mean, it's a pretty steep drop off from the last few albums. It's just very uninspired sounding. Like, it just sounds like Ben had to make a Screeching Weasel album, basically, so he did. It doesn't really sound like he's that excited about anything he's singing about on here. So, yeah, this is my first B tier album.
I wanna know if you wanna give.
Yeah, I'm also B. Like, I agree with what you're saying. Like, this is 1994. This is the year punk broke. So, like, maybe they kind of rushed this to get it out. They do have Mike Dirnt. They do, like you said, the half step down tuning, like Dookie. But I don't know. Is there something about the way this sounds? I'm a fan of Ben's vocals on this album. I'm a fan of the way the guitars and bass sound on this album. I don't think the song writing is great, but I find myself listening to this one more than the ones below it. I know like people are going to be up in arms about that, but this is one that I got much later than the other one, so it was one that I kind of had a chance to appreciate a little more. So I'm going B here with How to Make Enemies and Irritate People. Also, I'm a big fan of the new cover art for this one. Up next, man, we got the band broke up actually. I think the day How to Make Enemies came out, so we got another 2-year lapse. Signed to Fat Wreck, put out this one, Bark Like a Dog. What do you think of this one, man? This one's another polarizing one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, actually, a lot of, as far as the Screeching Weasel fan base goes, I think this is one of their albums that's held in a pretty high regard. So I don't know how people will feel about where I have it. I have it in the C tier. And that's after quite a bit of deliberation. I used to be a pretty big fan of this album myself. But I don't know, it's just there's not a whole lot of great songs. Like Cool Kids is a very popular song, but I'm personally not a very big fan of that song. And just in general, I mean, there's something off about like how the guitars sound. This sounds, from a production standpoint, more like a Riverdale's album to me. and you can kind of tell that Jughead usually plays like he strums. He doesn't like do like the Johnny Ramone down picking, you know. But on this album, the songs are mostly slower, and he's mostly doing all downstrokes. So it just kind of sounds more like a Riverdale's album to me. It's not one that I go back and listen to a lot. It's not horrible, but it's not one of my favorite albums by Screeching Weasel. I'm very curious where you have this album, because I feel like my opinion might be a somewhat controversial one.
I don't think so, because I'm pretty much right there with you. Like, I have it a little higher. I have it in B. Like you said, I mean, Cool Kids, it is what it is. It was a song on a Fat Wreck comp, so I think that's where a lot of the people who like it, where they get it from. But I think Get Off My Back is a pretty good opener. There's a handful of decent songs scattered through this. Overall, like, this was really tough for me, because this like era here of Screeching Weasel is where I kind of found the band. I'll get into where I found them a little bit later, because it wasn't quite in 1996. But this bunch here of albums is the ones that I've spent the most time with over the years. But I'm not going to lie to myself and tell myself this is a great album. But so I'm going to drop it just right in B, just kind of appease my nostalgia, but not be unrealistic about it. But I will take us into the next one now. We got to get this moving along, man. We're already at 20 minutes. Holy cow. We're what, halfway through, I think?
You can make a movie.
I know. This might be a part 1, part 2 thing. So I'll take us into this one, Television City Dream. Because for many years, this was my favorite Screeching Weasel album. This was the first Screeching Weasel LP that I owned. I just kind of feel like it has a lot more energy than Bark Like a Dog does, especially like looking at those first few songs. You got Count to Three. Speed of Mutation is a great song. Your Morality kind of brings back the older style Screeching Weasel, but it's more refined, better produced. Even fun songs like Dirty Needles, I don't mind. It's 27 seconds, but it's catchy. I think this is one of the most underrated one in the catalog. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this one. This would have been in my S tier. I didn't put a rank down. I have my ratings here. I didn't rank this one. So I was going to wait for yours first, but I started. So I'm going to go A on Television City Dream. I might move it later, but for now, I'm putting it in A. I'm putting it next to Anthem for New Tomorrow. What about you, man? What are you doing with this one?
Yeah, I have it slightly lower. I have it in B. This was one that I had to listen to a lot before I decided on where I was gonna put it. I used to be a massive fan of this album, but I've kind of grown out of it a little bit. The faster songs, they kind of go back to the hardcore sound a little bit. They revisit that, and I think they do it better now on this album than they did on the first few. Just because it's a lot more well produced and stuff. But I don't know. I just like Count to Three and I Don't Give a Fuck. Like, I don't listen to those songs very much. Those aren't go-to Screeching Weasel songs for me. But the more poppy songs, Dummy Up is excellent. Burn It Down is one of their best songs. So it's a pretty good album, but it's not one that I would listen to over Anthem or My Brain Hurts. So I feel comfortable putting it in B.
I'm pretty sure that your list is a lot more in line with the general Screeching Weasel fan base. So I'm glad about that. So people can complain about mine, but then they can agree with yours. That's kind of a good dynamic we're working with here. So Dylan, I think I told you this when we were deciding like which albums to pick for this list. I kind of said, hey, I really want to include Major Label Debut, even though it makes no sense to put this here. It's 6 songs. We skipped like every other EP, but this was so Television City Dream was the first Screeching Weasel album I owned, but this was the first Screeching Weasel release I had. So it kind of has like a little place for me. I bought this after I heard the song I Want to Be a Homosexual. I thought it was funny. That song's not on any of these albums we're doing, but I went to the store. This is the only one they had. And I think DIY, I don't know how you feel about it, but to me, it's a top 5 Screeching Weasel song. I really like it. Nightbreed is a killer Screeching Weasel song. Reminds me of like something the Lillingtons would write. Compact Disc kind of sounds more or less like Cool Kids. So, it is what it is. But overall, like for an EP, like having this be my first album, like how could you not want more after hearing this? So I'm going to go B. I'm going to try and be fair. It is an EP. I'm going to let nostalgia sway me a little bit, but I'll be fair and put it in B. But what about you? Having not as much nostalgia for this, what are you doing with major label debut?
Yeah, I feel similar to this one as I do Television City Dream. I think this one may have come out before Television City Dream. I could be wrong on that. Spotify may be lying. But I don't know. It sounds mostly the same as that album. I haven't looked into it, but I wouldn't be surprised if these songs were recorded in the same recording session as that album. The hardcore stuff I'm not big on. It's kind of noisy, but the poppier stuff is fun. You're right about the last track. At least the guitar parts sound very similar to a Lillington song, which isn't surprising because Ben was working with the Lillingtons around this time, I believe. So yeah, I mean, I got this one a little lower. I got it in C.
Yeah, you're 100% right. By the way, this is definitely before Television City. So that one I definitely know I messed up. But the other one I'm not sure. But that's what happens when they release multiple albums in a year. And I put this together right before we started. So it happens. But hopefully the people will forgive us because honestly, dude, this next one, I think everybody probably agrees with what to do with this one. I'll let you take us into it though. What are you doing with emo?
Oh man, I love this album so much. A++. If we had a third S spot, it would be. Nah, dude, this album's pretty terrible. I feel like this should have been a Ben Weasel solo album. I don't think anyone who had been with the band for an extended period of time has any involvement with it. I could be wrong on that. But it is very bad. The production is horrible. It basically sounds like Ben was just trolling everybody. Like he just didn't give a fuck when he recorded this. Like the vocals are so shit. Like he recorded it all in one take and it's just really, really bad. I feel like he just released this to fuck with people, to be honest. So, yeah, I don't even need to tell you where I got this one.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you. People who watch like all the videos here, I love to have contrarian opinions about like the most hated album in a band's discography, but I am not going to fight that battle for this one. It's really confusing, man. Like, I don't know if half of this is supposed to be a joke, if it's supposed to be funny. Like the Cranberries cover, like, is it supposed to be funny? Is it? Because I don't get it. I don't get almost anything on this. This was the easiest one. When we said we're doing Screeching Weasel, like I got my piece of paper, I wrote emo D. Like that was like the very first thing I did. So
I will say Acknowledge is an okay song, but
yeah,
to have your best song be the first track on the album and then just shit in my fucking eardrums after that point, like that's insulting.
Yeah. All right. So we're getting back in sync here. So this next one, if I'm in the right order, things have gone completely off the rails, but I believe Teen Punks and Heat is next. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't think this is on Fat. I should have looked it up, but
no, it's Panic Button.
Panic Button too. Okay. So this one, if you're looking at Screeching Weasel fans, this is one of the ones that's a little disputed. Some people have it in A, some people in C. So I'll let you take it away because I haven't decided. I'm deciding between two right now. So I'll let you take us into this one.
Yeah, so I think Ben was, he had Teen Idols under his tutelage at this point, and Phil from Teen Idols played guitar on this record. So it's kind of a Teen Idols-y sounding album, but with very different subject matter than a Teen Idol's album, as far as I'm concerned. I have this one also in my D tier. Uh, Talking about that song off Wiggle, Jeannie Has a Problem with Her Uterus. There's like 3 or 4 songs on this album that I cannot listen to, like in the presence of anyone who would not find that acceptable. You have a song just titled Erection. Like, oh man, it's a little on the nose. So yeah, I really liked this when I was like a teenager, and I thought a song about having an erection or jacking off in the tree outside your neighbor's house, like watching them take a shower, was funny, but it did not age well for me.
Yeah. See, I'm in the exact same boat with you. Like when I first heard this, I was like 15, 16. So I was all about that type of humor. I used to listen to those songs, even though they were bad. It was just funny. But like going back and listening to this, man, I just did not hear a lot of stuff that like was sticking. Like I was hitting skip a lot on this album, and I had planned on having it in B or maybe even A because it's in that sweet spot for me where I was really just getting into punk rock. But I'm going to go C. I don't want to dump it in D because I do like it better than emo and self-titled. Boogada, I mean, maybe I'll mulligan Boogada up a little bit because that's probably a better album than this one too. And I'll get some scene points back because that's really important to me. But so we've got a long break now, all the way to First World Manifesto. The band is back on Fat Records. This is 11 years later. And I'll be honest, Dylan, I said that Television City was my favorite Screeching Weasel album for a long time. And that changed when this came out. I don't know if this is a big oven mitt hot take or what, but I really, really like this album. I feel like it's leaps and bounds better than anything they did up to this point, especially in production. Like Follow Your Leaders, great song, reminds me of DIY from major label debut. So this is going to be my first S tier album. I could see the pitchforks coming out, so I'm hoping that you at least have some affinity for this one. What are you doing with it?
Follow your leaders, come on to believers, or frat boys with silly your haircut.
Yeah, I really like this album. I think it's, as far as comeback albums go, I mean, to go a decade without releasing anything. I think they were doing stuff with the Riverdales at this point for a while. But this is an excellent album. And it's A++ for me. I love every song on this album. Anytime I listen to it, I'll listen to it like 2 or 3 times back to back. It's so listenable. Dan Vapid's back in the band. I don't think he does lead vocals on anything, but just his presence is felt without even having to sing any of the songs. It's so good. Easily A++, and one of my favorite Screeching Weasel albums.
Dude, that rock. Honestly, I was nervous about what you were going to say when I put that in S tier because some people, they don't mix like the old stuff and the new stuff is like oil and water for some people. But like, I feel the same way as you. Like I can listen to that one front to back and then restart it. Like it's just really well done. They hit their stride after 11-year break. Like who does that?
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room, the SXSW incident, has tarnished this album's legacy to an extent. But musically, it is one of their best albums as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think that's a very unpopular opinion among people who have stuck with Screeching Weasel after all that stuff went down, obviously.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because when that came out, like I was like pretty active in the Fat Wreck wiki at the time, and people were like all about the album. Like people really liked it. But you're right. Once that incident happened, I could see maybe people associating the album release with that and not listening to it anymore. But whatever.
I get it.
Yeah, it makes sense. We'll move on past that. I don't want to offend anybody, but so this album, Dylan, first of all, would you like to pronounce the album for me because I'm gonna butcher it?
Carnival of Schadenfreude.
There you, dude, you did it, man. I was Googling it before we started because I was like, I know.
Just listen to the song and he sings it.
I knew I was gonna say
Here
it wrong.
in the Carnival of Schadenfreude.
So now that you could say it, where would you put this one?
Pathetic, 'cause I ain't a ball, baby, and I ain't a bad thing, and baby, I ain't just another fanatic.
This one. Oh man, this one drops off pretty far in my tier, my rankings. I have this one in C. It's kind of weird, man, because I don't want to harp on it too much, but obviously, to some extent, Ben was in the wrong. And there's a lot of songs on here where he's kind of playing the victim, and it's just kind of weird. It's like your scumbag friend who everybody hates, but he acts like he never does anything wrong, and he's confused why everyone's pissed at him. There's not enough fast stuff on here. The fast stuff that is on here is pretty cool. Parasite Murders. I like the tongue-in-cheek stuff like Fox News. Ben's always been a contrarian when it comes to his politics, and I can respect that he's vocal about that. But musically, I mean, there's too much of that like sing-songy stuff, like, you know, like the title song and Muscle Mary and No Reason to Lie, and it just gets a little grating even with it being a 7-song EP.
Yeah, this was another one that we debated including, but I'm right there with you. It looks like we could have not included this and neither one of us would have cared, but I mean, I like the songs that you mentioned. I also want to point out that I think Queen Kong is a decent song, kind of a throwback style to like the 90s Screeching Weasel stuff, but I'm going to put it in the C tier also. And I know that I've said there's been some polarizing albums, and you've actually shocked me and said that they're well liked. So here we go, man. This is Baby Fat Act 1. I think if there is a polarizing Screeching Weasel album, aside from Emo, which is not polarizing, it's just bad, that this is the one that people can't decide what to do with. And I think mostly there's like a negative perception about this one. So I'll let you take us into this one. As far as I know, this is long enough to be Act 1, 2, and 3, but it's just Act 1. Where are you putting it?
When they go, it's all sunshine and rainbow.
Yeah, I have this in the D tier, and it's not out of a dislike of it. It's mostly out of an indifference, which I think is how most people are just indifferent to it. It's not really a Screeching Weasel album. Obviously, Ben's the only longtime member of this band, and he doesn't sing on half these songs. I think most of them are sung by Blag from the Dwarves, yeah. Blag the Ripper. Preparing for this was the first time I really listened to most of it, and it just didn't really grab me. It's not bad, but it's just not I don't think it should have the Screeching Weasel name on it. It should be called something else, like Ben Weasel and Friends or something.
All right, so I don't disagree with anything you said. I'll say that, but I am a huge Dwarves fan. So hearing the Dwarves and like Screeching Weasel, kind of like this hybrid album, like it was kind of cool for me to hear. Like when I first listened to this, I really like instantly connected with the Entourage and Things Aren't So Bad After All is probably the best song on the album to me. But there is just so much here, and there is a lot of filler. I think if they trim this down to like 9 or 10 songs, it could have been way higher for me. I'm not going to go D. I'm not going to go C. I think I'm going to go B. I'm talking myself into this right now. Damn, dude. The thing is, so when I do these lists, I throw all these songs onto one playlist and then I just shuffle. And really? There's no doubt in your mind when a song from this comes on, no matter, even if Ben is singing, like you could tell, like the production on here for me anyway is very good. It's to the best up to this point. I love Blag's vocals. Yeah, dude, I'm going to go B. I'm not going to upset people too much, but I'm going to stay with my gut. Big Dwarves fan, big Screeching Weasel fan. Hearing this hybrid of the two was kind of neat to me, but I agree with you. It maybe shouldn't have been called Screeching Weasel since the defining characteristic of Screeching Weasel is Ben's vocals. So a little odd, but I'll go B. I think people that haven't listened to this yet should give it a shot, especially Entourage and Things Aren't So Bad. You might surprise yourself, especially if you're a fan of the Dwarves. But Dylan, as you can see, I've only got one S tier right now. We've gotten 14 albums, okay? And I think this is another one that people were pretty shocked when this came out. And as of right now, as of 2022, Some Freaks of Atavism is my favorite Screeching Weasel album. I think the songs on here, Back of Your Head, God Help Us, Settle In, Not Even Close. There are so many good songs on here. And I wasn't even like aware. I don't know if this was like a quick release. Like somebody who really follows the punk rock scene like me, I was kind of like blindsided when this came out. I don't know if that's on me or if it was just a quick release, but when I heard this, like, I feel like this may have been like mid-pandemic. I was like blown away. I was like, wow, we got a new Screeching Weasel and it kicks ass. So, like, we were all like, you know, staying in, and all I was doing was listening to music. And this is the one that I listen to most. So I really got a chance to vibe with this, connect with this. And I'm putting this in my S as of right now, my favorite Screeching Weasel album. So Dylan, with all that said, man, you don't have room in your S. So what are you doing with Some Freaks of Atavism?
Yeah.
After I just talked it up like that.
This album's really good. Like I said, I don't consider Baby Fat to be a Screeching Weasel album, so I kind of laid off. I didn't pay much attention to that album. So when this came out, it was almost like it was another decade-long break since the last Weasel album. To me, it was a surprise release. They basically were like, "Hey, we aren't going to be able to tour at all, so fuck it. Here, have this album." They released it digitally at the day they announced it. I listened to it so much. I was working during the pandemic because I work in retail, and I had this on the Bluetooth speaker at work every day for like at least a week after it came out. I don't have it quite as high. I have it in B. It's a very, very strong B. I like it a lot. Ben does some more of the socio-political commentary type stuff, and on this album, it's a little on the nose, in my opinion. But musically, it's a very good album, and easily one of my favorite Screeching Weasel albums. I would say in my top 5.
All right, so this is your favorite B then? This is like a B plus?
Yeah, definitely my favorite B.
All right, I can live with that. So yeah, now that you're talking about it, I remember now. I have the vinyl. I pre-ordered it, and then they were out of the color. I remember there was like a lot of confusion about the vinyl release, so they had sent me like a signed copy of Wiggle too to replace the lost color. So whoever runs Screeching Weasel merch or whatever is super cool. You know, I appreciate the signed copy of Wiggle. You could tell I really like that album.
I got not the Flex, but I got the first pressing on orange vinyl from Recess Records.
Damn.
The day they launched the pre-order, because it sold out in like an hour.
I think mine is like a blue green. I could be wrong, but
yeah, they did a shitload of colors after it sold out. They're like, oh man, people really want this thing. We better press like six more colors.
Yeah,
and they all sold out. These things are crazy, crazy sought after.
Yeah, and the next one too. So we're at the end, dude. We did it. We're at 42 minutes and 53 seconds. So not bad, not too bad. The goal was 30.
Hello
but
to anyone who's still watching.
Yeah. Well, people may want to hear what we have to say about the newest album that came out earlier this year, a few months ago, I think July. The awful disclosures of Screeching Weasel. For me, it's not quite as good as the last one, but I'll let you lead into this one. I led into the last two. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, it took a bit longer to grow on me than some freaks did, but when it did, it really grew on me. So I have this one in my A tier. Slight improvement over some freaks. I will say this one and the two before it, they all sound pretty similar from a production standpoint. You have Mike Kennedy from the All American Rejects handling production on all these albums. And I wrote a review for it, and I said that basically all three of these albums, you could take a few songs from each of them and throw them in a shuffle playlist, and you wouldn't be able to tell which album they're from. That's not really a bad thing. It's just kind of just Screeching Weasel has honed in on this sound they want to go for on the last few records since they made their comeback. There's a few songs I don't like on it. I don't like the Castle song that much with the sexual innuendos, kind of weird. Um, but the songs that I do like are really cool. There's some stuff on here that sounds kind of Lillingtons-y. Like I think Dead Alive does. It has that kind of like darker feel that the latest Lillingtons album has. But it's a very very good album. It's not my favorite of the three they've released since they came back with First World, but it's a very very strong album, and I'm excited to see if and when they release another album if it's as good as these three were.
Yeah, I'm also gonna go A with you. I agree with a lot of what you said. I think that for me anyway, I think Some Freaks of Atavism is slightly better. But this would probably be at this point my favorite of the A's that I have here. Dead Alive is a great song that you referenced. But Just Another Fool, that chorus is just so catchy that was getting stuck in my head constantly when I first heard this album. And then My Favorite Nightmare is another really good song on here. So those would be my three picks from this one. But that's it. We have now gotten through 16 Screeching Weasel albums. We did the limit of 2S, so that is why I don't think I mentioned that. I never do. But we had to put some in every tier. There was a minimum of 3 for every tier except S, and then 2 and S. So, Dylan, based on how this shook out, is there any like decision that really was tough for you looking at your list? Anything you wish you could have had higher, but there was no room?
Nothing I want higher really. I feel pretty good about where I have everything. I mean, I will say it was hard to rank the EPs just because they're not. I don't really listen to those at all, so it was hard for me to form uh, a strong opinion about them and decide where I wanted to put them. But ultimately, I feel satisfied with where how things shook out with my rankings.
Yeah, overall, like, dude, I was stressed about this. I think I texted you like 4 times that I have no idea what I'm doing with this list, like over the past couple weeks. But like looking at this, like this kind of feels accurate, like how I feel about Screeching Weasel in general. I really started to click with them in like the turn, like the mid 2000s. I got into like a lot of the stuff in that era. And then now, as somebody who is listening to more punk rock than ever, which is strange, of course, I'm going to listen to the newer stuff a lot and have that connection. Like the last 3 albums, not including Baby Fat, are like my top 3 at this point. So kind of cool. I don't think that's happened with any other bands where the newer stuff was my preference and the older stuff is all kind of in that basement area, except for Anthem for New Tomorrow. I'm curious what you guys are going to say out there. I know that there's a lot of Screeching Weasel fans who are going to hate that I have My Brain Hurts and Wiggle in the C tier, but you do have Dylan's list over there. So just show Dylan your love instead of showing me hate. If you want to show hate, that's completely fine. Leave it in the comments because it does help. Even if you hate on me in the comments, it does help. So appreciate all those down there. Dylan, anything else you want to say before we wrap up this turning into 50-minute video?
No, I've said way too much. Sorry if I'm lagging, by the way. It seems like my internet's screwing up. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think of my list. I'm very curious about some of the stuff, especially like Teen Punks. There's some people that really like that album. And I'm also curious about what people think of how we ranked the self-titled album. There are some people who are like, like the hardcore types who hate pop punk. They're like, oh, that's the only Screeching Weasel album that's worth a fuck. Like, you guys are morons. So I'm curious if we get any of those types of people disliking our dislike of that album.
What about any like emo fans? Will anybody down there show some love for emo? Like, I'm curious too. And anybody who's still watching is obviously a big Screeching Weasel fan. So I want to shout out this book that I got this several years ago in Austin, Texas, and I think it's pretty hard to find now. But this, if you're a big Screeching Weasel fan and you haven't read this, it's like a lot of like Ben's stories and articles that went to Maximum Rock and Roll, and just kind of like anecdotes. There's some about him and Dan Vapid in their like adolescent years. Just like a cool read. If you're a fan of Screeching Weasel, go check this out if you can find it somewhere. You could probably find a PDF if you look hard enough. But yeah, that's it. Let us know what you think of the list, what we did wrong. Up next, there's going to be a polarizing band. I'm doing Good Charlotte next. I'm curious what you guys even think about me doing that. And then I've got Orgcore Part 2. And then all of December is going to be ska bands for Scala Days. So make sure you're subscribed, tune into all that good stuff. Thanks to Dylan from Dying Scene for undertaking this massive discography again. Always appreciate it. We'll have Dylan back. Dylan, I want to have you back for when we do Lillingtons or Teenage Bottlerocket. So, or Riverdale's, dude. Riverdale's, like the whole Screeching Weasel family would be a good one to do. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Thanks again for watching. We see you next time.